session of the future of social protection in the Arab region, building a vision for the post-COVID-19 reality.
Recording in progress.
My name is Carmela Godeau. I'm the IOM Regional Director for the MENA region, and I will be your moderator for this session. It is a pleasure for me to moderate this session on coverage, a topic which is of utmost importance for MENA, where already prior to the pandemic, there was very low coverage for the most disadvantaged group. Excuse me, just a second. For the most disadvantaged groups, including women, refugees, and people on the move, persons with disabilities, as well as older persons and children. COVID-19 has also shown that informal workers, especially women who are clustered at the bottom of the labor market hierarchy, are not marginal to the economy, but are essential for its functioning. Social protection coverage of these workers must be a priority. Today, we delve further into this topic and look at the need of finding sustainable long-term solutions for those dependent on humanitarian aid, such as refugees, IDPs, and migrants, particularly those in the informal economy, which is critical, especially as humanitarian donor funding shrinks, conflicts are increasingly protracted in nature, and needs continue to grow. Our session will be divided into two parts. First, we will hear 5 country statements from Egypt, Oman, Bahrain, Iraq, and Morocco. These statements will be followed by a 5-minute comment by Mr. Mohamad Mazen from the Arab Trade Union Confederation. The second part of our session will be an open discussion for about 25 minutes, where we will open the floor for comments from country speakers first, and then we will also ask you, the audience, to share your comments or questions in the chat and address them to speakers. As your moderator, I've been instructed to ensure that all speakers keep strictly to their time limit of 5 minutes, so that we will indeed have enough time for the open discussion as well. Please feel free to post your question in the chat box throughout the session and or raise your questions. So without further ado, I leave the floor now to our first speaker, Ms. Nivine Kabbag, the Minister of Social Solidarity in Egypt. Miss Nivine.
Hello?
Yes, so we can hear you. Go ahead, please. Or no? We will be reviewing the systems of social protection, especially in the post-COVID period. I'm sorry, but the sound is interrupted.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the connection is not very good. And we're trying to target the poorest categories. We're working on the accountability systems. I'm sorry, I can't catch everything she's saying. Do you want me to tell them in Arabic that we cannot hear them, in case they're listening to the channel?
Yeah.
I don't think they're using the translation. So she's speaking about the newborns in the first 1,000 days. I think that now she got it. we are concentrating more on the refugees and the most disadvantaged. In the past years, I sent them a message in Arabic and writing. He's saying we cannot hear them.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Sorry. The anything that we can do from the technical side?
Whoa.
نص سنتين اثناء جائحه كورونا قامت جمهوريه مصر العربيه بتبني
Miss Nivine, sorry, can you hear me? Miss Nivine? Excellency, Dr. Nivine.
حتى يصل.
Sorry, but the connection is very bad and your voice comes cut. Maybe it's better if you can turn off the camera.
Maybe you can take another speaker now.
Do you hear me right now, Mrs. Carmela?
Yes, better. Let's try. Go ahead.
نحن يعني بنتبع مبادئ
We are following the principle of supporting women with cash assistance, especially during the pandemic, because 60% of women needed this help, and we did that especially in the rural areas. We have also given this cash assistance to some people who are considered from the elderly. We have also allocated cash assistance to pregnant women, to women who were breastfeeding, and you have provided the food baskets to families, especially to families that had the children who are in a very early, who are in the early childhood phase. We tried to cover more than 1,600,000 workers with the 5 billion Egyptian guinea, and since then, the Egyptian Republic has worked on creating a fund that we will be launching soon, and we are working on a strategy also for the most vulnerable workers. And we are thinking of a third model for those who do not contribute in the regular funds that we have, so that we can have social protection for them, especially those who are not covered by any kind of insurance or protection and cannot pay the contributions. And more than 50,000 persons were helped in this regard, and we have distributed the food support cards to a big number of Egyptian families. We have also been working with the CSOs and the NGOs, and we were able to cover more than 20 million persons from the most disadvantaged, either because of the poverty or because of the pandemic. We have also raised the salaries by 50% for 10.5% of the beneficiaries. So as you can see, the Republic of Egypt is taking into consideration what happened in the pandemic and its policies and its strategies. whether this is related to education, water, sanitation, or health, through the national program, Haya Karima, or Decent Life, that was adopted by the presidency to be able to cover 53 centers, 1,500 villages. And we've been working also on economic empowerment and reducing inequalities. We have also been focusing on people with disabilities, especially those who are not able to work. So 1,100,000 persons were covered. We will continue investing in human beings. So a new program was created for parity in education, so that children who were not covered by cash assistance can enroll in schools and can benefit from educational opportunities, and to widen the scope of vocational training and technical education, especially for children with disabilities. In the coming period, we will be giving priority to the expansion of the coverage, to widening also the scope of economic empowerment, and going to digitalization and our work, redistribution of support, so that we do not add to the burden of the government budget. So we'll be working with the CSOs and the charitable organizations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Ms. Nivine Kabbag. Sorry for the connection problems. I will now give the floor to Her Excellency, Dr. Layla bint Ahmad bin Awad Al-Najjar, the Minister of Social Development in Oman. The floor is yours.
In the name of God, the most merciful, the most compassionate, peace be upon you. I'm very happy to be with you today in this meeting. Of course, expanding social protection is essential for all countries so that we can have a decent life for all our citizens. Many topics were already addressed, and they're all very important. Also here in the Sultanate of Oman, we have started working on a social protection system that needs to be well integrated. So we have been working with different governmental entities, also working with civil society and with the private sector. And now the Sultanate is working on complementarity between these different programs and plans, so that we can have more aspects of social protection for our citizens, so that we can have the best coverage possible. So we are working also on targeting people with a better way, and we need to have financial sustainability for this system. It also needs to be flexible so that it can accompany any kind of crises that our citizens might face in the Sultanate. So we are expecting to have the necessary protection for all those who need it, especially the most disadvantaged. Thank you very much. Of course, we will be presenting to you later on the papers, and I know that this is a very fruitful meeting that will add to our knowledge and to all the strategies and papers we're working on right now for better social protection in the Sultanate. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Dr. Layla bint Ahmad bin Awad Al-Najjar. I now leave the floor to His Excellency, Mr. Jamill bin Mohamad Ali Hmaidan, the Minister of Labor and Social Development in Bahrain. Floor is yours.
Your Excellencies, dear ladies and gentlemen, ministers from the Arab world, dear ladies and gentlemen from the IBCSP that organized this forum, dear ladies and gentlemen, good evening. In the beginning, I would like to greet you all and to extend to you the greetings of Mr. Jamill bin Ali Hmaidan, the Minister of Labor and Social Development in Bahrain. He would like to thank you for inviting him to participate in this ministerial forum regarding the future of social protection in the Arab region, building a vision for a post-COVID-19 reality. Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear audience, harnessing social protection as a human right has been and still is one of our priorities in Bahrain. And you can find it in the principle of our national charter. It is also included in our working on the SDGs in Bahrain. As a Bahraini citizen, I have the honor to be with you in this forum to present to you our experience in Bahrain with regards to social protection coverage and sustainable response in the light of the pandemic. First of all, I will start by talking about our experience in Bahrain with regards to social protection. We work on social protection for all the categories of our society and the different health and social categories, and we're working also at the level of the elderly, decent life, occupational hazards, maternity, and it included dispersing different aids, including social insurance, financial assistance for people who have a limited income, financial aids to people with disabilities, financial compensation for houses who were burned. And also as a first at the regional level, we have issued a law in 2006 with regards to insurance against unemployment so that we can protect our citizens from poverty so that they can have a decent life in the period where they're searching for a job or haven't yet found a job. And the decree number 24 of 76, we have decided to have social protection for the citizens and their family members at the elderly level and also health level. Also, in our response to crises, we have always tried to have a well-integrated social protection system for the current generation and the coming generations. The Kingdom of Bahrain during the pandemic has proven how it's going towards achieving the SDGs under the leadership of His Highness the King, and we were always also supported by the heir apparent through the launching of a financial package amounting to 4.3 billion Bahraini dinar. Many people benefited of this package, especially for the people who were insured, especially for the people who were not able to have personal loans. We have also exempted them from paying the water and electricity bills. The damaged companies were also exempted from paying taxes. And we launched a campaign to work with so we were working also with all the categories. We tried as much as possible to alleviate the burden of the pandemic on everyone in a way that we could have social protection for all the citizens and to support them and guarantee for them a decent life. The kingdom was also working for recovery, and you have had many initiatives to develop the economy and have quality opportunities based on recruiting 20,000 employees, training 10,000 per year. We had a strategy also of $1 billion and drawing investments of more than $2.5 billion. And we were working on the non-oil sectors to develop them by 5%. Thank you very much for inviting us to this forum. We support all the objectives and priorities of this forum through having a global vision for social protection in the Arab world. And we would like also to benefit from other countries' experiences in this regard. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I now leave the floor to Her Excellency, Ms. Fikra. Sorry. Can we go ahead? I was thanking Your Excellency for the intervention, and I would like to leave the floor now to Ms. Fikra Abdurrahim, the Director General of Social Care Directorate in Iraq. Ms. Fikra.
Thank you a lot for holding this forum and this meeting. The effectiveness, the sound of the speaker is very low. If we might ask her to raise it, we can barely hear her.
Hello, excuse me, Ms. Fikra, can you increase the volume of your voice? The interpreter cannot hear you. Is it okay now? Hello, the interpreter.
Okay, better now. So Iraq has the oldest social protection system in the world, but the coverage is only limited to public servants in the formal sector. And this is according to a law in the year 2014, and this was amended in the year 2019. And this provides a good level of social security to public servants and also to military officers and security officers. As to those in the public sector, recently the coverage was only to them and did not include the private sector, but those who have an unstable salary and the self-employed also were not included. So the social security fund stipulated that all those who are included in the fund shall be a part also of the social security fund. And this is not what Iraq aims at. We want a wider social protection. We do not want to leave anyone behind, because the Iraqi state, of course, has promised not to leave anyone behind. As to the social security, part of the poor are covered by the fund. And here we have 11 categories, and the law 11 for the year 2014 governs this category. And COVID has shown that there is a wide gap in coverage, where many of those people have lost their jobs, especially the workers, the daily workers, and this has increased the rates of poverty in Iraq. Thus, there is a need in order to complement social security funds and social protection programs in order to fill this gap, and this requires a coordination between different entities. So currently an agreement was held between the EU and Iraq last year in order to reform social protection system, and the EU was also represented by the World Bank, UNICEF, and ILO, and all aim at reforming the social protection. As to social security, a draft law, amended law, was approved by the Secretary General of the Council of Ministries. It was submitted to the Parliament, and now it is in the ratifying and voting phase. And recently, 102 agreement on the minimal conditions of social security also was revised, and thus the government, the Iraqi government, is working with ILO on deploying efforts in order to expedite the joining of Iraq to the social protection umbrella in order to do certain amendments in legislations so that social protection will be provided to a wider number of people. We cannot hear the speaker well. Her sound is cut. But the complementarity between the social protection systems and the social security systems, one that is built on contributions and one not, constitutes a challenge to provide this protection on a wider range. So we need to fill the gap through doing this integration and have this integration between the social protection and the social security. We want to cover all costs and to include the boys and girls, and this, of course, will lead to economic growth. What we are suffering from now is that we lack statistics on those who work in the informal sector, and now we are counting on the efforts of the Ministry of Planning with the World Bank in the socio-economic survey conducted by the Ministry of Planning in order to know what is the percentage of those who work in this sector so that protection can be provided for the elderly, for young people, and for also people with a disability, so that they will be included, and also some support will be provided to the unemployed. Maybe they can be trained and thus they can find jobs easier and be included in the system. We will maintain the system of incentives as well. Thank you for your kind listening, and we are thankful for this organization and for your kind listening.
Many thanks, Your Excellency, Ms. Dhikra Abdurrahim. I now leave the floor to His Excellency, Mr. Abdelouahab Belmadani, the Director of the Central Planning and Financial Resources Department, in charge of the social protection file of the Ministry of Health and Social Protection in Morocco. The floor is yours.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank you for inviting me to this Arab Ministerial Forum in order to discuss the future of social protection in the Arab region, building a vision for post-COVID-19 reality. It is very essential to do this meeting in order to talk about the importance of social protection to maintain social cohesion as a prerequisite for social justice. Ladies and gentlemen, Morocco aims at achieving social protection, and it believes that this is the gate to develop the community. And of course, Morocco works according to the directives of the kingdom, and thus it aims at building a strong system that provides protection to several categories so that they will be immunized against many shocks and challenges, especially the vulnerable and those who were mainly affected by COVID-19 pandemic. Also, we have taken into account the commitments of Morocco in providing social protection, and this was made in the light of international conventions, especially recommendation issued by the ILO on social protection and the UN agenda or the Sustainable Development Goal agenda, where providing social protection on with a wider coverage is one of its main points. So this is a commitment of the Kingdom of Morocco towards its people, and of course, facing COVID-19, the commitments were even greater. The Kingdom wanted to provide different services to its people and try to contain this pandemic through having a health survey and to reinforcing the main medical services and providing vaccination and medication to the people. And this, of course, is necessary so that the country can be up to its commitments, because this is a priority in the country. There were several challenges during this pandemic, and many lessons were learned, but a system for inclusive social protection was a priority for the king, and thus a plan was set. First, widening the compulsory social protection by the end of 2022, so that 22 million additional beneficiaries will benefit from the compulsory coverage of medicine, which covers hospitalization and treatment and medication. Second, several compensations that will be provided to 7 million children, between 2023 and 2024. Three, widening the base options through merging 5 million people who do not get now any kind of a pension, and this shall be made by the year 2025. Four, providing compensation for the unemployed, for people who are unemployed by the end of year 2025. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are facing massive challenges in order to adopt more flexible social protection systems in order to face and overcome the challenges in the Arab region. So in this ministerial forum, we understand the importance of signing a framework which focuses on reinforcing social protection systems, including ties and similarities in different agreements and conventions, in addition to technical networks that are relevant in this regard. Add to that, the need to find a unified Arab vision to provide comprehensive social protection, allocate sufficient resources in this regard, and set also a system for monitoring and evaluation in order to provide better social protection and achieve sustainable development. In the end, I would like to reiterate that in this ministerial forum, we are talking about social protection, and the results will, of course, be reflected in the indicators of all Arab countries. God provide us with luck, and thank you for your kind listenings. God blessings be upon you.
Thank you many, Your Excellency, Mr. Abdelouahab Al-Belmadani. We have now the Minister, Dr. Abeer Al-Chalaby, Deputy Minister from Iraq, who has joined the meeting, and maybe want to come in. Do you have further comments on the intervention that was given by your colleague? Faddali.
Thank you. Thank you a lot for providing me with this opportunity. Excellencies, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, God blessings be upon you. At the outset, I would like to thank the organizers of this highly important meeting, which tackles very important aspects of human lives in the Arab region and in this area. And we all know that COVID-19 have had massive repercussions and impact on our societies and communities, and this has increased the rate of poverty. And those countries already suffered from poverty before the pandemic. But what happened is that the Iraqi government felt after COVID that there is a need to review many of the social protection systems and mechanisms that were adopted or used before in Iraq. And so the reform paper was issued and accepted by the Council of Ministers, and thus all systems and programs in the governmental sphere were included in this paper. And this reform paper also was used in order to establish kind of inclusiveness between governmental sectors. So it has fortified this intergovernmental cooperation, and thus more cooperation was made between the government and international organizations. So we have done 2 projects. The first was social protection, and also we wanted to create this integration. That's why we have unified the databases, and also we continued implementing the main international principles, because we understand that if we did not comply to that, we cannot achieve the goal, which is having a complementary community where people can enjoy dignity and welfare. So we implemented the 2 projects in collaboration and cooperation with several international organizations, mainly UNICEF, ILO, as well as World Food Programme and the World Bank. And every organization was in charge of implementing part of this reformative paper. And of course, the project we were working on complies to this paper as well. So this MOU was established in order to have an integral work in order to cooperate among each other to revise many of the aspects we work on, such as IT in particular, because we have a lot of weakness in this regard. So we reviewed a lot of that. In fact, this was one of the projects that we have started implementing. In addition to that, it was necessary to unify all the database, because we know that the database might include the elderly, the unemployed, the women, children. And so we started this categorization. We did that according to age and sex. And also, we wanted people with disabilities who could work as part-timers to be included. This categorization will help us to set our priorities in finding jobs, and also we took into account the intellectual level. This also notwithstanding the importance of children. So there has been a lot of gaps in Iraq before, but this paper is so much goes parallel, I mean, to the SDGs. That's why we wanted to give opportunities to women in order to play a role in society. We took into account also the aspect of empowerment. We did not want this aid program to only focus on providing cash. We wanted to provide jobs to the unemployed, and the Iraqi community is young. More than 61% of the community is young. So we wanted to be productive as well. So we took all those issues into account, and we wanted everyone to play a role in building this community, this country, and also to play a role in achieving SDGs. All governmental sectors had a role to play in the projects, and we worked hand in hand, and we cooperated among each other in order to achieve these roles and these goals. We also set a plan which was timely, so everything was well studied and was time bound. Time was very important for us because we believe that when cooperating, we can avoid kind of here multiplying the efforts or repeating the same task. Also among the reforms made by the government were the legal reforms. Maybe some articles were amended, such as a lot of laws, and we are waiting for here the intervention.
تجعل من يعني حتى أخذنا في نظر الاعتبار. إحنا كانت يعني
so that we can face all the crises, and all of these will be new methods that will help us reach our objectives and goals. Thank you very much. And I hope that our Arab peoples will have prosperity and stability. Thank you.
From the Arab Trade Union Confederation. The floor is yours, Mr. Mohamad.
شكرا لكم. بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله.
Thank you very much. Peace be upon you. I'm very happy to be with you today. In the Arab Trade Union Confederation, we would like to confirm that although more than 50 years have passed on the social protection systems in the Arab world, we still have a lot to do to really reach a social protection coverage, especially the international institutions and organizations are talking about leaving no one behind. So we're still very far from achieving that with all the vulnerable people that we have, the marginalized people, the farmers, the domestic workers, etc. So the protection systems that we have were not able until now to really meet their raison d'etre. And this is something very dangerous, but at the same time, this is an opportunity for us to reconsider these systems. Many studies have shown problematic issues within our social protection systems, because the insurance and protection systems in the Arab world include different issues that are limiting their efficiency. We have partial or separated insurance systems. We don't have standardized policies that unify them. So we don't have unified standards or harmonized standards, but this doesn't mean that there were no positive steps. For example, our colleagues in Bahrain have merged both pension funds, and now they have the general entity for social insurance, and now this is the sole entity responsible for guaranteeing this protection. And I think this is a very important step with regards to standardizing the implementation tools or executive tools of social protection. Second, inclusivity. Inclusivity is a very sensitive issue because when this is weak, this means that this will lead to inequalities, especially when we speak about the most disadvantaged and the most vulnerable, like those who work in the informal sector. Here also, I would like to draw your attention to a study that was conducted by ILO in Iraq with regards to those who were working in the informal sector in Iraq. The study showed that most of these workers didn't have any social protection. Because the workers still need to pay some kind of contribution regardless of the job that they have. So the Iraqis are not as fortunate to really be able to contribute in these funds, but regardless also of the nationality. We see that a lot of workers in the Arab world are not covered, especially those who work in the rural areas and agriculture, those who work in services, those who work in trade also. So we have seen the need to raise awareness with regards to the obligations and rights. And I can tell you that without this, we cannot expand the social protection system to include everyone. This is why we need to pay more attention to the communication channels so that we can reach everyone and so that these workers are part of any strategy that aims at expanding the social protection system. In the Confederation, we confirmed that it's high time we reached change, especially in the laws that we have, because in most of the institutions of social insurance, we don't have health insurance, employment insurance, maternity insurance, etc. We have also seen the regression of health insurance, and this is one of the challenges that workers are facing in general. Regardless of the insurance and the Arab world, until today, most of these insurances and pension funds only maybe compensate workers with one payment. And there is also an absence of studies with regards to different studies. For example, those who have the least income, what about covering them with something that is really adequate with the income that they have? So once again, we confirm all the rights of the workers within systems that take into consideration the socio-economic circumstances. There is also another problematic issue that is the lack of trust in these insurance companies. And this is why people are not motivated to be in these systems. This is why it is important to work on networking, on positive networking with the different social protection institutions, the stakeholders, and partners. Also, governmental interference or intervention in the system sometimes is negative. We need to have more autonomy also for these institutions, and I think this is something unhealthy. Add to it the lack of governance or the weak governance.
Did I pass the time? Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry.
Can you conclude?
Okay, I will stop here and I'm ready to answer any of your questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your contribution, Mr. Mohamad. And now, following the country statements and the input from the discussant, we are moving to the second part of our session, which will be much shorter because we have taken most of the time. But I would like to open the discussion. So please either raise your hand for questions or write your question in the chat box. In any case, please introduce yourself and your institution when it's relevant. So while the colleagues are scanning the chat box for eventual questions and comments on the contribution, we have listened to from our esteemed speakers for this first Arab Ministerial Forum on the future of social protection in the Arab region, building a vision for a post-COVID-19 reality. I'm looking at the chat box. I don't see any hands up. So the colleagues that are reading in the chat box, when in reality we have 3 minutes for...
I raised my hand. Excuse me.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Just,
Please introduce yourself.
My name is Ahmad Al-Haiki from Ministry of Labor from Bahrain, the Assistant Under Secretary. I would like just to, to let you know that Bahrain بالعربي اوكي لقد استفادت مملكة البحرين.
The Kingdom of Bahrain during the pandemic has really seen a lot of solidarity, especially with the unemployment fund. And in addition to that, the charitable organizations helped in supporting the jobs and the labor market. And the fund, the unemployment fund, supported more than 100,000 Bahrainis. The same goes for some companies. So this gave stability to the jobs that remained in the market. And of course, in any labor market, we have entering and exiting companies. Of course, some jobs are lost, and it's something normal. Under the pandemic, many countries lost millions of jobs during the pandemic. In the Kingdom of Bahrain, thanks to the support and thanks to the efforts made by the king and the leadership, I can tell you that the jobs that were lost in the year 2020 or 2021 were less than those that were lost in 2018, 2019, or 2019, 2020. So this shows the importance of the system that we have. And also the kingdom's organizations helped the taxi drivers, also those who teach people how to drive. And all of these jobs, thanks to this support, these jobs were preserved. And I would like to thank the last speaker who mentioned Bahrain with the pension fund and the insurance fund that were merged to give social protection to most of the workers in the private sector. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see Mr. Fadi Jabr. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Fadi Jabr, I'm the Secretary General of the Arab Confederation for Food Products. Thank you very much for this a big demonstration, if I might say, for social protection in the Arab world. My dear lady, when it comes to Arab food products, these are actually family products, social products. So I propose to add a recommendation to preserve heritage food products based on geographical areas. Why? Because food is a priority for human beings. If we don't have this autosufficiency, then how will we survive? So under the pandemic, people maybe had the money, but they were not able to have some of their basic needs met. So if we really want to advance our society, if we really want to preserve our civilization, our culture, we need to preserve this heritage food. Thank you very much.
Thank you to you for your contribution. I think I don't see other hands. Correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, in case we have exhausted our time, and we should go back to the main, in few minutes, to the main session. I see another hand up, Mr. Mohamad. Go ahead.
Yes, I have an important point to make. We need to review the experiences of different countries in facing COVID-19. How was Morocco able to provide 65% of the informal workers with what they needed? How Oman was able to develop its protection system to include a different, the influx of different workers? How was Egypt able to do this and that? These are, of course, positive experiences that we need to take into consideration. We shouldn't forget about them, especially that they emanated from this urgent situation created by the pandemic. And I think that the delay sometimes was because of the bureaucracy, and because of the pandemic, people had more open mindsets. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mohamad. And you have also somehow summarized the very rich contribution from the statements that we have heard, that have all reaffirmed the importance of social protection system in mitigating the socioeconomic aspect impact of the crisis. We have heard from, for example, from Egypt, the forward-looking measures as a new fund to be launched, a strategy for the most vulnerable workers, a third model for those who do not contribute and are without security, social protection, a new program for parity in education. From Oman, we have heard about a new integrated approach to work with private sector, CSO, and all-line ministries. From Iraq, the need to integrate social security and social protection, and the need to enhance data on informal sector. Morocco, it was mentioned also, need for unified Arab vision on social protection, financial resources, and monitoring and evaluation to improve the social protection delivery. It's important to go back to what the countries have been able to achieve during this crisis, during the pandemic, and to have a forward-looking at what can be done more and how we can consolidate the acquis during this period. So I just want to, I think we are over, but just now to remind you that in order to return to the plenary, click on the individual link that you have received via email, the same ones you all used to join the forum plenary in the first place. You can also see on the instruction slides what you need to do to get back to the plenary. And in addition, the sp.org colleagues have asked Zoom to resend all registration confirmations and speakers' invitation so that they're fresh up in your inboxes to make this moving back easier. So please check your inboxes for the link again. And I hope to see you at the 17 in 10 minutes time back in the plenary. Thank you very much for your contributions, very rich contributions, and your participation. See you in 10 minutes. Thank you very much.